Thank you very much for staying tuned. It is 2020 in retrospect. Should I say Happy New Year to you? Yes, it's a brand new year, but before we, settle down into the year, we have to take, retrospect of what played out in the year 2020. And right now, we're going to be looking at the aviation sector. For the past few hours, we've been looking at other sectors, and right now is the aviation sector. Thank you very much for joining us once again. I am Ruth Aguele. Of course, we cannot take away the important role the aviation sector plays in the economy when you're talking about air transport, connectivity, and all of that. We have an aviation analyst already seated in the studio. He's going to be telling us what we need to hear. Thank you very much for joining us, and Happy New Year.
Oh, Happy New Year, Ruth. And how's it been?
Great.
Wonderful.
He is Godi Ike. Thank you very much once again for joining us. We saw a fundamental change in the aviation sector in the year 2020, beyond the expectation, now not just for Nigeria, but globally. But let's bring it back home to Nigeria. How would you say the aviation sector fared for the year 2020?
Oh, well, it's been quite challenging for the aviation sector, as a matter of fact, primarily because of the pandemic. Coronavirus pandemic. No sector was hit, and is still being hit as hard as the aviation sector has been. And you rightly pointed out, in the midst of all the challenges, the aviation sector in Nigeria hasn't done badly, really. I am quite impressed with the all the conditions being rolled out for having people coming to Nigeria, and that's compliment also goes to the the presidential task force that is developing and bringing in new ideas that have been helping in sustaining the aviation sector, especially the latest decision that has been made not to shut down and not to ground the sector once again, but get right around it by putting out conditions that must be met for people to come in and go out of Nigeria, and that is quite commendable. So far so good. It's not been easy. The aviation sector needs a whole lot of money to really stabilize. I've been singing this song as if anybody sent me to go and raise funds for them. No, but because I understand how the system works, and I understand the nature of airplanes. When you have planes sitting on the ground, they are busy running bills. Unlike your car that you park and it's sitting there waiting for you, and anytime you jump in, you crank your engine and off you go. That's your car. But for the airplane, 24 hours after packing an average jumbo jet, you begin to sink money because some maintenance activities will continue to go on daily basis.
Which is something that is very critical. Now, would you say for Nigeria, that is one aspect we have really concentrated on? Because when you're on air, lives are at risk. So if your aircraft is not properly maintained, they're bound to be, some...
They fall out of the sky.
So which is what nobody is praying for. So, how would you say we fared in that regard?
Oh, well, so far so good, because I was actually coming to the conclusion of the picture I was painting for you to understand how the nature of the airplane, when they sit on the ground, all they do is run bills. You need to continue to maintain them, one maintenance after the other, in order to keep them airworthy. And then again, when they sit on the ground, their airworthiness become challenged, and that means that for you to ensure that anytime you take it into the skies, that the passengers are safe, or if it's any of the ones carrying goods, that its payload is safe. And so I can say that our airliners did well enough to continue to do what was required of them to keep those airplanes safe, because otherwise by now we would have had some incidents. And two, when they scream and plead that they need funds, I'm a proponent of the fact that they should be funded, even if it's not a grant we're looking at.
Are you talking about intervention funds now?
That's correct, because it's very expensive business to run. Maintenance of airplanes is extremely expensive. I mean, if on average C check, I mean, I don't know if you understand the categories of checks that planes go through, depending on how long they've been used. I mean, you have the air check, you have the B check, the C check, and the ultimate one, a D check, and that depends on the usage and the age of the airplanes. An average C check will cost you about $2 million to deal with. And then traveling, because we don't have the facilities, I understand a few companies have set up systems to deal with these, but I don't know how ready they are, and whether our airliners are already patronizing the local one. But for what I knew last, they would always fly abroad to go get this job done. And I tell you what, apart from the fact that you pay so much to have the maintenance work done, flying an empty aircraft from here, for instance, to New York costs you nothing less than $200,000 US. In fuel consumption, payment of overflying, because each nation you overfly, that's a fee you pay. So, I mean, because they give you the permission to do the overfly, and of course immediately debit you for the fee you pay, and then you go out there, you have your parking fees, and then of course the crew will be paid, and as they wait out there for the job to be done, you spend money in hotels, and it's a whole lot of expenses to get these machines airworthy. But I tell you again, the nature of airplanes, they are very faithful machines. I always say that to anyone that would also listen. Airplanes are faithful. They fall out of the skies because human operators sometimes can be unfaithful and dishonest, and that's why they fall off the skies.
All right, let's look at the present realities as at 2020, talking about the COVID-19 pandemic. We saw the airlines, shut down for 3 months. And on July 8th, we saw domestic flights resume gradually and all of that. Now, there was a really setback in terms of, revenue generation. And before the crisis, talking about the pandemic, about $1.7 billion was being, generated from the aviation sector. Now, there's this outcry for welfare, for intervention fund, to be given to the aviation sector. That was in 2020. Now, we're not praying for another lockdown because obviously, like you said, there are measures that have been put in place. So how are we going to look at 2021 in terms of, the right policies in place to ensure that our airlines are, on track?
Ruth, you must understand that barely 2 weeks into the pandemic, I had the opportunity of being right here on NTA, on TVC, on radio, Armed Forces Radio, on WeFM. I was all over the places because, they just kept inviting me and speaking. I announced to our nation that those airlines or airliners would need money. And as soon as the lockdown was lifted, we needed to brace up. I asked the government to brace up and be ready to have them funded. Barely 2 weeks into the pandemic, but it didn't appear anybody was listening. But then again, something gives me really joy as we get into the 2021. I listened to Mr. President graphically this morning, and I heard him say that one of the things that will happen in this 2021 is that would be proactive. That bit thrilled me in everything that Mr. President said this morning, because I listened graphically and I heard every word and every letter he said to the world and indeed Nigeria. he made it clear that from now on, we would be proactive. It made a lot of sense. It made, the biggest impact on me, because if we were proactive at the time I started singing this song 2 weeks into the pandemic, we would not have had any case of pilots being, losing their jobs.
Can I hold your thoughts there?
Yes,
because we have another guest join us via Zoom in Lagos, the engineer Emmanuel Ilori. He's the Vice President, Association of Marine Engineers and Surveyors and Senior Maritime Surveyor, Lloyd's Register, London. Thank you very much, Mr. Ilori. If you can hear me loud and clear, thank you for joining us. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Nice hearing you, and we wish you a very good New Year in the transport sector.
Okay, I'm sure you've been following the conversation, and we've been looking at how 2020, the aviation sector will focus in. But let me throw this one to you as regard the transport sector. What are your thoughts?
Hello?
Did you hear my question, Mr. Ilori?
No, I did not hear you quite clearly.
Okay, I said you should give us your thoughts as regard the transportation sector for the year 2020.
I will come in from the maritime dimension and the economic perspectives of the maritime industry vis-a-vis the transport sector. The Nigerian economy is reliant on the transport sector to thrive. And in this year, I don't think we have performed as we should, and I don't think it's a blame game. There are fundamental and institutional issues that affect the maritime sector and how that sector drives the economy. I've had my colleague from the aviation sector, and I can come back to that later. But the nation is a maritime nation. If you look at the advent of this nation, we were reliant on the maritime industry, not only to establish this nation as an economically viable nation, but it's part of our governance. The colonial masters came to Nigeria via the maritime industry. So we need to look at what are the fundamental issues of how the maritime industry can drive this economy, how we go to where we are today, and how we can begin to improve that sector. After all, the aviation industry contributes only about 15% of the logistics, and then what happened to the maritime dimension?
Lori, looking at the maritime sector, there were strings of security challenges in that domain. What are your thoughts?
Well, the security part of the maritime industry, I think, is only a very small part of the challenges that we encounter. Okay, we are exposed on the Atlantic Ocean, so we have challenges of the bandits playing on the Atlantic coast and how that affects Nigeria. But don't forget that the security challenges on the ocean do not start from the ocean. They start from inwards. So we need to look at how these bandits get to the ocean in the first instance. What are the causatives? What are the things that drive them to go to the ocean? Are there employment issues? Are there socioeconomic issues within the nation that enables these security challenges that we have on the ocean? After all, take the Somalia example. On the Gulf of Aden, the challenges there started from the Somalia experience. So we need to look at the internal challenges that drives this maritime security challenge that we have on the Gulf of Guinea vis-a-vis the Nigerian coast.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Ilori. I'm definitely going to get back to you. Now, Mr. Ike, he talked about security in the maritime domain, but let's look at improvement in terms of infrastructure in the aviation sector. We saw the remodeling, of some airports for the year 2020 in terms of, if we're looking at, infrastructure.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, that's the positive thing that we took and are still taking from the pandemic. For every negative thing that happens to a nation, there's a lesson to be learned, and there's something to take home, from that. So we got something really from the pandemic. I had wondered aloud, and I said to anyone that listened, what were we thinking about when we left our airports in the kind of state they were before the pandemic?
Which takes us to maintenance culture.
That's correct. And a few people were quite unhappy with me when I made that comment, because I had said it must be something ringing in our heads. Otherwise, we always had the money to put in the best in place. We didn't need pandemic to drive us to doing what's right. I mean, we didn't need pandemic to realize that airports where people congregate, and all kinds of people, both sick and well, and not too well, congregate, mix with each other and get things done. We needed to have an automatic driving, sliding doors. We needed to have automatic sliding doors. We needed to have, water that would dispense automatically, with the sensors on. Once you put your hands, you get water dispensed for washing your hands. We needed to have toilet facilities that would notice that you are, getting up and automatically flush. There were a whole lot of things that we needed to have taken for granted, would have had in place. But Ruth, they were not there, until the pandemic came, and then taught us to begin to do the right thing. And I must tell you, I am quite impressed. I'm quite happy at what I'm seeing right now in place, in our airports, and that's very commendable. But I would urge those managing the facilities that it's a daily thing, it's a minute by minute thing, hour by hour, day by day, week by week. If you let go for 1 second, they begin to degenerate, and that's not what we want.
Okay, I would like to get back to Engineer Ilori. Let's look at, since in line with infrastructure, let's look at railway development for Nigeria, which has made transportation, much easier to some extent, and that gobbled a lot of, funding. We saw that happen in 2020. Now, what would you say regarding that?
I think we need to look at the issue holistically, how the railway will drive the Nigerian economic development. In terms of logistics, yes, the railway, if properly developed, will enhance passenger movement efficiently. But if you think about how we want to drive our national economic development, we need to look at our logistic trade, or how we want to distribute goods, how we want to site our industries. If you look at the inception of this nation, we have Lagos as an industrial center and as an administrative center, and they were able to develop the inland waterway network. At the moment, the amount of goods that we can carry by rail is very, very limited. And then what we have in the nation today is a road network industrialization, which means we are putting pressure on the road network. And that is not very safe, because the roads are really not designed to carry the amount of goods that we are carrying at the moment. Our vehicular traffic becomes unsafe, we have increased accidents, and that's not really the way for a nation to develop. If you look at the industrialized nations in this world, the Americas, the UK, China, Russia, and all those nations, we see how they have been able to utilize their maritime endowment to become super industrialized nations. And Nigeria has been identified as one of those nations that can replicate this global industrial development and the economic transformation and industrial transformation that we want for this nation. Well, it's not presently happening. We are not harnessing our maritime resources as we should do. And these are institutional problems. These are policy decisions. Our colleague from the aviation industry was just talking about the aviation industry, and he mentioned the issue of air accidents. Just imagine if we have 15 planes drop down from the air in one day. You can imagine how that's going to put Nigeria. But we have in the maritime sector an incident where in a day we had about 15 to 17 vessels having major accidents and nothing happened. But the aviation industry, for instance, they look at these challenges and they were able to address the issue of regulation, compliance, and verification, and the professionalization of the aviation industry. And all this improvement that we have in the aviation industry is because we have identified the challenges. But just think about the 85% of the industry that actually carries the global logistics and the goods, and Nigeria is not addressing that. That shows we have fundamental challenges there. It's a policy issue. I mean, take the aviation industry, for instance. Now we have is the aviation industry being run by an aviation professional, an airline captain, and we have various policy decision aspects of the aviation industry being professionalized. I don't think that is happening with the maritime industry, but this is an industry that is very, very critical to our national economic development, and we need to look at the issues there. I mean, I only raised the issue of the top level. There are various aspects at the lower level that need to be addressed.
Okay, Engineer Ilori, let's also, in line with what you're saying, every aspect of transportation has its plus and minus. If we look at the inland waterway transport, is also one area which we've not really, focused on. But back to railway development, what about PPP, talking about public-private partnership for railway development in terms of infrastructure improvement on that?
I think the efforts in the railway development in recent times, it's very, very impressive. And I think that's going to improve parts of transportation, in passenger transportation and small goods transportation. Yes, this is very, very good, because what that will then do for us is to move some of the passengers away from the roads, and generally, if properly run, passenger transportation through the railway network will improve passenger safety nationally. But in terms of economic development, we still need to look at how we can develop this nation, because when the president is talking about economic diversification, we need to look at how we can institutionally develop our logistic network through intermodal network.
Okay, thank you very much, Engineer Ilori, there for your contributions. Now, back to you, Mr. Ike.
Yes.
A lot has been said in terms of the railway development, and also the aspect of inland waterway transportation is one area we should be focusing on this 2021. I know there's been a lot of, bits of improvement in that regard. But for you now, in terms of aviation, if we have to marry all the sector in terms of transportation, looking at 2021, your final thoughts. What are the projections?
Oh, well, I heard Engineer Ilori very clearly, and the fact that we haven't paid enough attention to the maritime, sector makes sense to me. We can't choose one, sector and leave the other. It's the same one nation, and everyone is given the service required to grow the economy. It's all about the Nigerian economy, by the way.
Yes.
We're not doing anything to please any individual.
It falls back.
That's right. So, if you refuse, for instance, to give grants, or in a safer scenario, to lend soft loans to these sectors to have them and ensure, not just doling out money, ensure that the monies go to where they are meant to go, that they don't leak away through corrupt practices, because that's one of the horrible challenges we have as a people and as a nation. And I can bet you this government is doing the best it can, but there's more to be done. There's room to do it much better. So I would encourage that every sector be given equal attention, because it's bits and pieces that need to add up. When they add up, they give us the great nation we are looking for. If you deal with one and leave the other, it doesn't make sense, because you will be building this way and there will be leakage through the other way, and the economy just sits there, sitting like sitting ducks and looking so helplessly, and so I agree with Engineer Laurie. We need to fix every sector, treat every sector as equal, and then create a great nation out of Nigeria. I'll tell you what, Ruth.
We have to round up.
Okay, that's fine. There is no country that is blessed as Nigeria.
Yes,
believe you me, even as a young boy, I had the opportunity to live outside this country for the rest of my life. My immediate elder brother, he's lived in the US for over 50 years. But I had all the opportunity.
But you're back home. No place like home. Thank you very much.
I love this nation.
All right.
This nation thrills me. It really thrills me. We can fix it.
Yes.
It's just that we need to increase the number of people that are thinking positively and are keeping away from corruption and keeping away from evil.
If I allow you, Mr. Godi Ike, you will go on. I know you're very passionate about what you do and the prosperity for Nigeria. Thank you very much for your contribution.
I appreciate you.
He's an aviation analyst, and we have been looking at the transportation and aviation sector, whether by road, water, or land, man and goods must move. Let's go on a break. We'll be back. It's still 2020 in retrospect. Thank you for staying tuned. It's still 2020 in retrospect. And before we took that break, we're looking at transportation and aviation sector. We'd like to thank our guests who joined us via Zoom in Lagos. That is Engineer Emmanuel Ilori, Vice President, Association of Marine Engineers and Surveyors, Senior Maritime Surveyor, Lloyd's Register, London. Thank you very much, Engineer Ilori, for your contributions on the program.
Thank you very much, Ruth.
All right, now we're shifting our attention to something that affects you and I. I'm talking about the health sector, which we all know, has really affected not just Nigeria, but the world. If we're talking COVID-19 pandemic, something new to the world, something, that 2020 saw the world unite against the virus. And unfortunately, many are yet to come to terms that this is real. We have two guests joined us in the studio. Let me start by introducing Professor Abdulsalami Nasidi. He's the former DG, that's for the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Provost, College of Health Science, University of Africa, Bayelsa State. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
And Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Okay, joining him is Dr. Isaac Akuma Egboja. He's a public health expert. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. Good evening and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too.
And Happy New Year, Nigerians.
Okay, it's good we're all looking healthy in the year 2021. But let me take us back to 2020. February 28th will forever go down history, talking about when the Ministry of Health announced the first Italian citizen to be confirmed with the virus, and that changed everything. It started trickling down the numbers gradually, and it was something we did not expect we'll get to this, point that we are. Professor Nasidi, what would you say, looking back 2020?
Well, as you rightly said, it's rather the experience of most countries. If you remember, it started in China, and we thought it was so far and it will never come here, and the people were virtually, laughing at a far country that has a disease that is killing people so fast, to the extent that their health system was crumbling under their feet. Their hospitals could not cope. They had to build rapidly some new hospitals, and Chinese showed their power. They built 30-story building hospital quickly to cope up with a number of patients and a number of deaths. So all this was occurring. We thought, it will not come to us, or even if it come to us, it will take some years. But unfortunately, within a short period of time, it spread like wildfire in the bush, in the savannah, as they say, and it caught Europe, caught other Asian countries, crossed over to America, and then started hitting Africa a little bit. So some might be surprised that it moved so quick, but we in the medical area are not really so surprised, because it's an airborne disease, and any airborne disease that is occurring in any country now can occur in any other country anytime, anywhere. This is because, apart from the fact that the virus or the pathogen flies in the air, there's also human creation, which are the aeroplanes, the air transportation that carries this, it's like it's aiding the diseases to spread more. So it's so easy to fly from Beijing, to Hong Kong, to New York, or from New York to Lagos or Abuja, or from Abuja to Tokyo. All this can be done within the space of 24 hours. Yeah. So these are one of the few things that happened that made the disease to spread so quick.
Okay, Dr. Egboja, going by what Professor Nasidi has said, and for you, looking at the year 2020, something new, the world had not experienced before, and the way people were going about it, and for Nigeria, how we just, grew in numbers, talking about the cases of COVID-19. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that last year was some kind of dream that nobody would have ever wanted to have, that we had as a country and as a world. In Nigeria, like Professor Nasidi just mentioned, it was one case in February. By the time we knew it, it went to 300, 400, 500, few hundreds. As of yesterday, the end of the year, we had gotten up to 87,564 for the year. And out of this, 73,713 were successfully treated and discharged. But unfortunately, we also recorded 1,279 deaths, which we never thought would have happened. So it was a year of bad dream from that perspective. It was also a year that teaches us taught us a lot of lessons. Lessons about what we ought to do, lessons about what we ought not to do, lessons about how prepared we should be at all times, because certain things, especially disasters, whether they're natural, disease, or whatever crisis, could come at any time.
Okay, Professor Nasidi, and we saw the challenge, the struggle of trying to contain, lessen the curve as it's gradually increased, So, going by our situation in terms of managing or containing the spread of the virus, how would you say the nation fared in that regard?
Well, I can say, definitely, we've done not too bad as people might be thinking, because luckily for us, we had some systems, mechanisms on ground that we could use to respond to this outbreak. For instance, our systems we used, to fight polio, to fight Ebola, to fight avian flu, assisted us in improving, enhancing our preparedness. So the Federal Ministry of Health quickly mobilized what we call the health sector response. It was really effective at the beginning, and one of the things that we have to also, record is that Africa has come of age. Before, when this type of outbreaks occur, we have to wait for the foreign experts to come. We don't even know what is the pathogen, and they have to bring us all their gadgets that we need to fight those diseases. But with this now, we showed that Africa could do it, and within, let's say a space of 72 hours to about 5 days, 1 week, our experts had quickly identified the virus that the person who brought the disease brought into Nigeria, characterized that virus, and deposited it in the World Gene Bank. That is a huge achievement. And then by the time this was occurring in Lagos, our national surveillance system were already on the outlook. So the first few states that recorded first cases were also picked very quickly. So, and then the governors of those states started working on how to contain it. That's Ogun, Oyo, and then it kept coming, and then it came to other states. Then the other response that we had that made it even unique, which something new that we are doing for the first time, is the multi-sectoral response through this PTF. It's like non-executive, response. It's not like what we did during the Ebola, but at least it's an innovation, and many countries also studied it, even though we could have pushed it further to get the executives, those who decide, to really have a way of coordination. So that's the only problem that we had. So the multi-sectoral response, where you have all the ministries, private sector, journalists, everybody is there, and they are discussing the disease, is very unique. Then lastly, what I believe we learned and gained from is the fact that many countries and many places, the pressure of COVID made them to lose a lot on the former gains they made. For instance, just before COVID, we eradicated polio. We are declared polio free. Yeah.
Yes.
Then we made huge progress on malaria control, malaria elimination.
Yes.
Then on TB eradication, we also made huge distance. But COVID came, and all our resources, human, material and financial, were now diverted. So Nigeria could really be flexible enough to address the emergency, the health crisis of COVID, and still struggle to maintain the gains made in these other areas. I think that's huge progress.
Okay, Dr. Agboja, I want to believe you agree with what Professor Nasidi is saying, but going by the numbers we have today that you quoted for us, would you say we got this far because of attitude from, there was this tag of take responsibility, and a lot of people we saw flaunt the COVID-19 protocols that were put in place, which is still, we still see happening. Would you say it was more of a contribution from the individuals,
Well, I think this is a very important question. In one way, you could say that we've done very well. The figures we recorded could have been worse. But when you look at it from the technical point of view too, it is true to say that the numbers you are seeing are probably less than what the real cases are, what the real numbers should be. Because, for example, at the moment, there are lots of states that are not testing enough. There are lots of people who are flaunting the guidelines, the protocols, and they're not caring about wearing their face masks. They're not caring about keeping physical distancing. They're not caring about washing their hands. They're not doing the basic needfuls that would prevent anybody from being infected with this virus. So, and we're not able to test as many as we would like to. And I want to repeat that. I believe very strongly that if we were able to go to all the local governments in the country, 774 of them, and take samples in each of the local governments and test as widely as we are supposed to do, I can bet you that we are going to have a larger number than we have now.
So we're not testing enough?
We're not testing enough.
What is the challenge?
Well, some of it is attitude of our people. The virus has spread into the community as much as the Federal Ministry of Health, the State Ministries of Health, and the Nigeria Center for Disease Control are trying, sending their staff out, doing the best they can do, singing the songs, and everybody else is trying to let people know that it's danger. Keep within certain limits so that you don't infect yourself or infect somebody else. People are not responding as good as they should have. At the beginning they did. They did very well. I think people were scared. People thought of COVID-19 to be like Ebola, which was killing very rapidly and in a way that you didn't have a chance to even recover. And when they found that many people were recovering, like from the figure that I gave you, out of the 87,564, we have been able to treat 73,713 successfully discharged from the hospital. If it was Ebola, this couldn't possibly happen. More numbers would have been recorded, deaths would have been recorded. Of all this, out of the 87,000 infected, only about 1,279 died.
Which brings me to community risk management and awareness. There's been a lot of sensitization. The media houses, have been out there. People we've seen go out there. People who are tasked with the responsibility, to reach out to communities. But yet, there is still that lackadaisical attitude towards the virus. And we have a challenge. We had a challenge rather in 2020. I don't know if it's still there. You would tell us. Isolation centers were running out of beds because the numbers were increasing. And the facilities, the capacity was becoming a burden. What are your thoughts, Professor Nasidi?
Well, it's rather unfortunate. You are absolutely right. You know, at the beginning of the outbreak, these type of outbreaks, especially respiratory disease epidemics that move to pandemics, in the history of humanity have always never come in one wave. They always come in several waves.
Yes.
And the more waves that comes, the more intensive it is. So the intensity increases with the wave. So when it came, unfortunately, it spared Africa a little bit. In other countries, it came, with severity, like Italy and all this. And after Wuhan and China, the first few countries it came to hit them very seriously. In Italy, when it started, they also ignored all the social distances, all the protocols recommended. But within 2 months, when they saw that the cases were increasing, a number of deaths were becoming unbearable, everybody fell in. And they started following all those protocol social distances. Deaths became so frequent that they were even bringing dead bodies on the street to distance. So if also we take the experience of the most powerful country in the world, which is the USA, when it came first few cases there, if you remember January, February, they were saying, we can overpower this, it's not a big problem, we're going to control it, we're going to do this. And it's not issue of lackadaisical, it's underrating the enemy. You think we are powerful enough, we have everything, we have the machines.
They're immune.
Yes. Oh, no, not immune. But we have the wherewithal. Yeah, we can fight it. If it is drug, we have drugs to treat patients. That's what even the leader, the president, was saying. But the experts were saying, no, this could take us by surprise. Be careful, this could surprise us. They didn't listen, and then now it took them by surprise. As I'm talking to you today, almost 300, how many thousand deaths? More than 350-something thousand deaths as of today in the US, more than all the wars that country had ever fought. But in the African continent, the disease came and was not very severe. Even though it has jumped, in Europe it was severe, in America it was severe, in China it was severe, but it came to African countries and it spared us. So it came slowly. There are cases, the first wave were not as bad as this, except in few places, like some towns in South Africa, Algeria, Lagos and Kano, whereas, it came rapidly and killed, so many people and so on. So then it went down again. But when it went down, our attitude started going down, as you rightly said. Oh no, things are finished, going down. Even some of the treatment centers close it. But we experts were saying, no, this is the time for us to prepare more. There could be second wave. Second wave. And they didn't listen, and unfortunately it's now happening. So, and now it's really catching us, how they say, with our guards down. And, we might now need more resources to fight this second wave than before. But that's not even the end of the story. Unfortunately, the second wave is now coming with variants. Not the same virus that we know that is now causing the second wave. Like in UK now, they say they found second virus, a variant. In South Africa, definitely there's a second variant, which is now even having higher transmissibility, meaning it's jumping from human to human faster. It's spreading faster, it's affecting more youth, and it's killing more people. So it's spreading. South Africa, that was experiencing how many cases in a day? 1,000, 3,000 in a day, started experiencing 15,000, now 30,000 cases in a day. A number of deaths are tripling, doubling, and etc. So gradually in Nigeria, when even directives were given, close this treatment center, close that, this and so on and so forth, we started, unwinding our preparedness. As I'm talking to you now, some of the treatment centers are so overwhelmed, and we don't know what is happening. We are now talking of the urban areas, rural areas, but we don't really know what is happening in the rural areas, in the hard-to-reach areas. Many cases of deaths are occurring. People don't know. They say it's malaria, is this. Definitely we have evidence of increase of cases there. We definitely have cases, evidence of increase in deaths. And so this second wave requires a little bit more, severe, serious response and that response is usually beyond just an institution like NCDC, Federal Ministry of Health. The response must be massive, fully coordinated, and believe me to God, the major decision of the response is on the federal government's shoulder.
You're making it sound scary, Professor.
It's not scary, but it's for us to warn that if we make a mistake and we let it escape beyond what it should, we shall pay more dearly. So it's just to, alert and say no one should take this thing for granted.
Yes.
Everybody. In fact, the fight now is for everybody, for individuals. Like me, I reluctantly remove my mask here because I'm not sure of the transmissibility. So the responsibility starts from you, me, and then goes to the family, community, local government. But I said the main one actually starts from the president, from the federal government and state. But unfortunately, what we are having now in Nigeria is that some states are in denial, and even you have some state governors making terrible statements that will make people not to believe in the disease again.
From what you're saying, Professor Nasidi, I want to get to you now, Dr. Egboja. The variant of the virus for this second wave, and the hope for some, who believe is the vaccine, which Nigeria is supposed to expect this 2021. But affordability, access to it, because it has an importation clause. What would you say regarding that?
Well, it is unfortunate, very, very unfortunate that some people are thinking and hoping that the vaccine will be the solution to the problem. I don't think so. And most medical experts would not say so. Why? Because this variant may not even respond to the vaccines that are developed now already.
Yes.
And who knows? After this second variant, there may be another one. And when you develop a vaccine or a drug for a particular virus, bacteria, you look at the gene sequence in it, you look at the molecular structure of that virus or of that bacteria, and you work towards eliminating it, making it ineffective, making it non-functional. If, for example, now there are more variants that come up as a result of the continued replication of virus, which will happen, it means that whatever structure you saw or that you worked with to develop the first vaccine will be totally different from the structure that you would have at the end of the day. And therefore, the vaccine you developed in the first time may not necessarily, and I'm emphasizing on that, may not necessarily be effective against the second variant or the third. And this means that we might need to start all over again in terms of trying to understand even the second variant, the third one, and whatever number may come up. We don't yet know. Then, here comes the big issue, which is access. We may not even have the physical access to the vaccine as quickly as people think. Even if we have the financial access, in other words, even if the Nigerian government is able to buy enough vaccines, the huge work of distributing this vaccine, the logistics involved of distributing these vaccines to the states, are making sure that it is stored properly, are making sure that everybody has a chance to get it. But it's not something that you could do overnight.
Yes.
It will take some time. Besides, nobody has used this vaccine before. Therefore, we do not yet know how potent it will be. Nobody knows whether this vaccine will be useful for only 3 months, or 6 months, or 1 year, or 10 years, or for a lifetime. Nobody really knows. We are still studying. And therefore, for somebody to say, well, when the vaccine comes, I'll take the vaccine and I'll be okay. How about if you don't take the vaccine? How about if you don't get the vaccine? How about if you take the vaccine and it's only good for 3 months? Yeah. How about if the cost per dose of the vaccine is so high that the government is unable to cope?
What about the numbers, Dr. Egboja?
Yeah.
20 million doses is what we're expecting, the speculated expectation for the first stage of arrival.
Yeah.
We're looking at the people of 200 million more.
Precisely. This is what I'm talking about by saying access. It means that even if you have your money, you will not have the vaccine. You don't have access. You may have your money, but you will not have the vaccine because it is not enough. you may have the vaccine somewhere, but we still have to ration it. We still have to look at the most vulnerable group. If, for example, now, like this second variant virus is attacking youths more than other groups, the authorities might decide, for example, and say, okay, let's focus on adolescents and protect them. Now, you and I are not adolescents. Therefore, you not be the priority. They may say, well, if you are 60 years and above, you have to wait. That's the language that they will say. You have to wait. Let the young ones get it first. What does that wait translate to? What is the meaning of that wait? I wouldn't want to say it, but you know what waiting could mean. It could mean you wait until you die. It could mean you wait until by the time you get the virus, it's already too late. Or it could mean that by the time it gets to you, it is finished.
And I know Professor Nasir is itching to contribute to that aspect, talking about the vaccine. Go ahead.
I know. Actually, I'm just trying to say that in the face of this challenge, that the second wave is increasing virtually in all countries. If you watch the program, you go to the sites, websites, WHO, honestly, you see that even the second wave is not yet flattening or platooning, as they say. So that means we have to quickly, look for the tools to fight the virus. And the most effective tools we have now are these protocols that we are recommending, especially for the African continent. Because as he's saying, our access to that vaccine may not be as simple as we are thinking, even if you have your money. So what are the tools we need to fight the disease? We must start enforcing. No more begging or requesting or health promotion or risk, communication. We do it extensively. Health promotion, risk communication extensively, so that everybody will agree, will hear that the best way for me to save my life is to know that there is one invisible enemy there that I don't know where it is. Let me close my mouth and nose and then go with my hand sanitizer and keep distance. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. We're engaged in super spreader activities, naming ceremonies, big weddings, or one-bit dances, artists, and so on and so forth. So the second tool that we have that is most effective, that if it comes, is the vaccine. As it were today, the 3 or 4 vaccines that have been approved, or 5, are definitely, have been proven to protect higher than 80 to almost 95%, which is really good news. So any country that wants to protect its population and doesn't manufacture that vaccine must start doing anything possible to gain access to that vaccine, because there's now evidence that the vaccine can protect you if you take it. And we have evidence also to show that big countries with big population, I'm happy you mentioned, hey, we are 200 million and then we are waiting for 20 million doses. How come? And when will the other vaccines come? When will Nigerians, be guaranteed that by so time all of you will be immunized? You understand what I'm trying to say? If you remember, the US government will say, by end of January we are going to immunize 20 million. They manufacture the vaccine, they manufacture the syringes, everything, yet the logistics to even apply the vaccine is very huge. So every big nation that has big population had to start talking to the manufacturers and say, we want to do advanced purchase, or I want to book and buy. If not, it's become too late. As he's saying, you might have the money and you want the vaccine to buy. They say, sorry, you didn't come early. You just wait, we shall send it to you. And then the next problem is people are saying, the vaccine might not even, work. It can even harm you because it's a gene-based vaccine, messenger RNA vaccine, or not this. So all these ones now, left to me, those fears have been taken away, even though it's still around among the, skeptics, among those who don't believe that the method they use in producing the vaccines are effective. But luckily for the world, luckily for countries like ours, low-income and middle-income countries who don't have the capacity to manufacture the vaccine, the vaccines available now are produced not using the same method. They are produced using different methods. So you can choose. If you say your people might not accept the messenger RNA type of vaccine which is gene-based. You know,
after a trial.
After a trial, but it's being used now in many countries. But your people can say, we don't want that, and so on and so forth. But you cannot say, okay, let's try the other vaccines. These are, vector carrier vaccines. China has killed vaccine. Russia has vector vaccine. AstraZeneca is vector. Then you have J&J vaccine that is just one dose. Most other vaccines you give them twice. J&J, Johnson & Johnson vaccine is just one dose. So our health team can actually sit down and choose and say, okay, for Nigeria, this is what we think will be better. So when you now get the ones you think is better for you, you now quickly start negotiating and get the vaccine. How do you get the vaccine? You get it either through multilateral, going through all these organizations. That's what they call COVAX. So that one say they can't give you more than 20% of your needs. So what do you tell the remaining Nigerians? 80%. You don't want to give them vaccine, you have to get them vaccine. So to get them vaccine, you have to go direct and actually get them this. But there's one thing he keeps saying. It is one thing for you to bring in vaccine and start saying you are stratifying who you are giving the vaccine to without telling Nigerians when the others will get that vaccine. Even you create problem. We also what happened with NSAS. You do palliative, and the palliative is being distributed, and others are looking from far at when is it coming to me? When is it coming to me? If it doesn't come to me, we know where the warehouse is. We can go there. So these are the things we should avoid. We have learned a lot. It happened 1986-87 when we had yellow fever outbreak. When in areas on Benue and Delta, and even when death rate increased. In Benue, Oju local government, where he comes from, within 2-3 weeks, 9,400 people were lost. So when the vaccines came, am I right, Dr. Boja?
Well, about 2,000.
When the vaccine came, and we are now given to limited, especially children, all those who are active, people below the age of 22 or 20. The others were struggling. They didn't wait. When they now saw that it didn't come to them, some attacked where we were storing the vaccines just to get vaccines. Out of fear, some got vaccinated more than 17 times. I know a case that got himself vaccinated 17 times.
We don't pray for such situation.
So the best thing to do is to plan big and plan ahead. And I think this is the area we shall say we are too slow. We are not really we didn't do well in this area as we would have loved to do.
And Dr. Egboja, we saw a lot of funds go into the health sector, intervention funds, just to contain the spread of the virus. And talking about this vaccine, one major plus will be the storage capacity. We're looking at importing, yes. We're looking at, affordability. What about storage capacity?
Well, now that you've touched this point, let me use this opportunity to thank the generous Nigerians, the kind Nigerians who donated money, not because they have plenty money. All those who donated billions, like the Dangotes, the Lumelus, and so on, people would say, they had too much money. But if you have too much money and you don't have the too much heart to give, you will not give. There are still some Nigerians who are very rich and who didn't give a penny. We need to thank these people, and we pray that God will reward them. Okay. Now, my recommendation personally is, and I've been saying this, first of all, we need to start from developing our own vaccines. We've been singing this song, and we will continue. We in the technical field will continue to sing it over and over again. We have some facilities like NIPRID, the Nigerian Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development, here in Idu. We have the Nigerian Institute for Medical Research. We have the Nigerian Institute for Veterinary Research in VOM. These institutes are capable of producing vaccines within a very short period. I think that we should start investing massively in them. If you go to these institutions, you will be very impressed by the quality of the scientists that we have there. They are capable of, within a very short time, developing vaccines. Even if we are not going to be able to develop our own original vaccines, we can cope with those who have already developed vaccines, ask them to come and work with us so that we produce our own vaccines in country. Now, talking about storage is the number 2 step. You have to produce before you store. You are talking of storage of the one that you are going to buy from outside the country. That's a huge area for investment for us to do, because cold chain is very expensive, especially for new vaccines that you don't yet know. Like Professor Nasidi said, different companies are developing different types of vaccines, and these different vaccines have their own conditions of storage and transportation. So if you develop, for example, a particular type of storage for a particular type of vaccine, and here comes another from another country that has a totally different way of storage, a different temperature, you are in trouble. You need to comply. So we need to do our own thing within Nigeria. One of the lessons we have learned from this
very briefly, we're rounding up.
Yes, from this pandemic is for us to look inwards and develop what we need by ourselves.
Talking about improving our health sector, I want to thank Professor Abdusalami Nasidi, former DG and CDC, Provost, College of Health Science, University of Africa, Bayelsa State. Thank you very much for your contributions.
Thank you for having me here.
And Dr. Isaac Akuma Epoja, public health expert. Thank you very much for your contribution.
My pleasure.
Right.
Always.
And all Nigerians want to see is that, there's an improvement, but you have a role to play by doing the needful. Take responsibility for your health. Let's go on a break. We're back.
The future of the global oil and gas industry has been a subject of great debate for decades. Since COVID-19 surfaced, there's been even more conjecture on the issue, in particular, the most likely timing for peak oil, when crude production reaches its maximum rate before going into permanent decline. Nigeria's gas industry is on the verge of real transformation. Some of the FIDs that were close to finalization were postponed globally. However, Nigeria stood tall as the final investment for Twin 7 LNG was signed.
We are crossing what we call the Ndoni-Abo River crossing in River State that will deliver gas from the eastern part of the country into the western corridor. That means expanding gas supply into the ELF line, also making gas ready, and the AKK, it will be waiting for AKK to come up.
Government declared the year 2020 as the year of gas, and huge investment to increase Nigeria's value realization from her huge gas endowments from the Ajakuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline.
When completed, the Ajakuta-Kaduna-Kano gas pipeline project will provide gas for generation of power and for gas-based industries, which would facilitate the development of new industries and also the revival of urban industries.
Autogas and the inauguration of the Oredo Integrated Gas Handling Facility and LPG processing and dispensing plants, key players say, highlights President Muhammadu Buhari's genuine determination to deliver on his promises even in the face of daunting challenges, particularly those posed by the coronavirus pandemic.
The administration of President Muhammadu Buhari has made unprecedented strides in the area of gas infrastructure development that will facilitate exploitation and monetization of Nigeria's massive gas resources.
The global oil market through OPEC was instrumental in helping counter the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic and in stabilizing the oil market through successful implementation of the Declaration of Cooperation Objectives and an unprecedented production cut.
As we look to navigate the future energy transition, it is our deeply held conviction that we need to work together step by step and challenge the misconception that the oil and gas industries are not part of our energy future.
The chain reaction of events due to COVID-19 and the drastic measures taken worldwide to mitigate the spread of COVID-19 led to an unprecedented drop in the demand for oil and a corresponding catastrophic collapse in prices. OPEC's latest world oil outlook, for example, forecasts increasing oil demand for 2 more decades. The good news is the federal government is resolved to deepen local content, transparency and accountability so that Nigerians can have maximum impact from the oil and gas sector going forward. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson, NG.
Strategic to economic growth of any nation is availability of electricity supply, and federal government says it remains topmost on its priority list, with more funding injected into the sector in 2020. However, the sector had its share of the ripple effect of COVID-19 pandemic, which slowed down work on many power projects. Notwithstanding, power sector witnessed remarkable progress in the year 2020 as Nigeria recorded twice in the year peak generation of more than 5,000 megawatts of electricity, which was successfully transmitted through the national grid.
What we have to do first is to make sure that we have a robot grid that can transmit power anytime and to any place.
Similarly, number of power substations were inaugurated, like the Gagarawa substation in Jigawa State, which was abandoned for more than 20 years, even as more contractors were mobilized back to site to complete abandoned power projects. The Mandela Hydroelectric power project, which remained on the drawing board for more than 40 years, is gradually becoming a reality, with a flag of sensitization to host communities and youth empowerment program that will train 20,000 youths expected to be engaged during the construction of the hydro dam.
We wish to provide action and more action as far as this project is concerned.
While efforts are being made to construct more hydro and gas power plants, attention is also given to solar-powered projects, with many inaugurated across the country, while additional 20 million Nigerians are expected to benefit from the solar-powered Niger project, which Rural Electrification Agency flagged off in the year under review.
As we progress, by the year 2021, up to the end of our tenure, we intend to achieve a lot, not less than 11,000 megawatts.
In order to make the sector attractive to investors and in line with the multi-year tariff order, service-based reflective tariff was introduced to boost power supply and ensure customers pay only for what they consume. This was followed by the National Mass Metering Program, thereby bringing to an end an era of estimated billing and revenue losses in the sector. There was also leadership change at the Transmission Company of Nigeria, TCN, as the managing director of the company, Usman Gur Mohammed, was relieved of his appointment, and Sule Ahmed Abdulaziz stepped in as the acting managing director. Projecting into the new year, sector players say the gains recorded in the year 2020 should be consolidated for Nigeria to overcome the challenge of inadequate power supply. In Abuja, Joshua Ojito, NTA News.
All right, thank you very much, Joshua Ojito, for that report there. Of course, now you know that you're watching 2020 in retrospect, and right about now we'll be looking at power sector. Access to power is something that has been a challenge for decades for us in Nigeria, but there's been efforts, so we want to look at how 2020 fared and what are the projections as we begin the new year. We have Engineer Farouk Yusuf Yabo. He's joining us via Zoom in Sokoto. He's the Acting Director of Renewable Energy and Rural Power Access, Chairman Mandela Project Delivery Committee from the Federal Ministry of Power. Thank you very much for joining us, Engineer Yabo.
Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, and here with us in Abuja studio is Mr. Abba Aliyu. He's the SA to the Minister of Power on Policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ruth, for having me here.
Okay, let me get back to Engineer Yabo. Happy New Year. I didn't say that to you. It's the start of the year, but let's take stock for 2020. How would you say the power sector fared for the year 2020?
Much root. I think reflecting back on 2020, the Nigerian economy was powered by, or rather was provided power from three sources, mainly the national grid, which comprises of the generation, transmission and distribution. And then, of course, the off-grid systems, which are now becoming a common thing around the country. Of course, largely then the self-generated power. So I would like to focus specifically here on the grid power supply, which truly has surprised many experts in the sense that whereas there is major impact, negative impact on the COVID-19 on the sector, but we've seen some new trends which are quite amazing. Typically, in this kind of the time of the year, January, December, is a peak of the dry season, and so we usually have very poor supplies. But it seems we have consistently been adding new capacity, has been hitting new targets, or rather new high peaks, which is quite unusual in the history of the power sector. For instance, just on the 11th of December, we had the highest energy generated per any day of the year, which is well over 115 megawatt hours. This was up from another peak that was reached in April, which was around 112 megawatt hours. This is quite unusual in the sense that the dams are supposed to be going down. And also we have a lot of challenges importing equipment as a regard of restrictions with travels. Also added to this is another dimension of having highest peaks in this kind of time. So I would rather say, if I reflect back in what has happened over the last 10-15 years, this is a new trend that I believe is courtesy of some of the activities that has happened in 2020. Added to this also, I can see the off-grid space has also seen an unusual improvement in the sense that just last 3 months, the Honorable Minister of Power and indeed other officials of government had commissioned close to 30 or 40 projects. I can remember just this December, there were commissioning of 8 projects in Adamawa State. Precisely, the commissioning was done in Mubi, but the projects are spread across Adamawa State. The same thing previously, in the previous month, about 12 projects, also mini-grid projects, were commissioned in Kano. Just before that, also a lot of other projects were commissioned. So clearly, whereas we are not anywhere close to where we should be, and we need to work even harder, but one that has been following trends can see clearly that despite the COVID-19, the 2020 year has not been too bad for the power sector. I think I will stop here at this particular time. Thank you.
And thank you very much, Engineer Yabo. We'll definitely get back to you. Now, Mr. Aliyu, from what Engineer Yabo has said, there's been improvement in the power sector if we're looking at generation of power. But what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I will agree with what Engineer Farouk mentioned. To assess how the Nigerian power sector performed in 2020, we need to reflect back in terms of how is the reform process in the Nigerian electricity market taking place. Now, if you are following the trend, you know that the Nigerian power sector was privatized, and there has been the privatization is a long-term process. It's not something that would just happen and a lot of changes happen. It's a process that takes time over time, and this, if you reflect, not only in Nigeria, globally, where they have privatized their power sector, you will realize that immediately after the privatization, there was the emergence of a lot of different challenges. And even in the Nigerian sector, after the privatization, new challenges emerged, which were before the privatization were not there. Before the privatization, like what Engineer Yabo mentioned, the generation, transmission, and the distribution were all under one monopoly, under the government. But now you have a situation whereby you privatize, and the 100% of the generation, it's been owned by private sector, and you have the transmission being owned by federal government, and you have also the distribution, most of it owned by the private sector with some stake owned by federal government. Now, when you have a situation where before the privatization, it's
one particular entity that manages the entire value chain of the power sector. And now you come to a situation whereby there are diverse entities owning the different segment of the sector. There definitely be new challenges that will emerge. And now when the government of Mr. President came into being, they inherited the sector at the time when it was just privatized. So we just came and there were just the emergence of these new challenges. For example, one of the key challenges that we inherited is the misalignment of capacity along the electricity value chain. What I mean here is you have a situation where you have a generation capacity of about 13,000 megawatt, and you have a transmission that has a capacity less than what can be generated, that ranges between 7,000 to 8,000 megawatt, and you have also a distribution segment of the value chain that has far less than what can be transmitted. So we have that situation, and that misalignment along the electricity value chain yields further challenges of market liquidity, because when you generate, you have to, the generation company have to get paid for what they generate. But if it's not all what they generate can be transmitted and distributed, then there's misalignment of that, and that difference has to be paid by the market. So this government, as it comes, the first thing the Honorable Minister did is to take stock of all these challenges and now come up with 5 key point policy focus areas. And the first one is to align the infrastructure, ensuring that what we generate can be transmitted and can be distributed. So that's his first key focus area. The second focus area is also to look at, apart from all the population that are on the grid, there are a number of Nigerians that are not completely connected with the grid. How do you serve them? We have the Rural Electrification Board that has that mandate to do it. So he also said that another focus area is to focus on that key area of those without access. The second one, the third area of focus is to also address the market liquidity. We have a situation whereby what it's being generated or what is being distributed, the distribution companies do not have the capacity to recollect all the payment for what they distribute to the public. So there is a misalignment of payment in that. So to also focus in that area to address that. Then there is also the issue of coordination. When you have, for example, like I mentioned earlier, a sector that is under one entity and now broken into different entities, there is the problem of coordination. Every single entity will now say that, okay, I'm doing my own thing based on our own priority as a company. So there is that misalignment. So there is need to make sure that you harness that focus into one key objective of providing Nigerians with reliable and quality electricity.
Like a seamless process.
Exactly. Then the last area of his focus is to also say the federal government project that we inherited, legacy project, is to see that we complete them so that the generation capacity can be show up. For example, we have the Mandela project, the Kashimbila, that Inkoa, a number of generation capacity. So he also focused in that area. So the first in last year, what we achieved are various initiatives or projects under each of this segment. When you take under the alignment of infrastructure along the electricity value chain, we have the Presidential Power Initiative, the Siemens project, which in the history of the country, for the first time, we have an intervention that it's been done along the entire value chain of the electricity, from generation down to transmission down to distribution. Even there's aspect of a central metering data management system that is being imbibed stepped into that project. So this is a novel project, that initiative that it's been done. We have also under the electricity access on the 21st July 2020, the Mr. President approved the Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan, under which there's a particular intervention of providing 5 million solar home system for Nigerians, and under that plan we are presently implementing that plan to provide 5 million Nigerians that are not connected with the grid with electricity. So that's another area of intervention that we are looking into it.
Okay, let me hold your thoughts there, because we have a guest joining us from Lagos via Zoom, and he's not going to be talking about power, but looking at the oil and gas sector, which we want to find out how we thrive. Let's make welcome Mr. Bala Zaka. He's a public affairs analyst and petroleum engineer. Thank you very much, Mr. Zaka, for joining us.
Thank you and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too. Maybe I should just go right away ahead and go with the first question. Oil, we know, represents 80% of the country's export, 30% of the banking sector credit, and about 50% of overall government revenue. If you want to, throw back 2020, what would you say?
Well, thank you for that question. Crude oil revenues in the context of Nigeria constitute what I can say probably a high quantity of the oxygen of Nigeria's revenue. But when we are now talking about the global pandemic, that was a global calamity. I mean, that global calamity affected everybody, and it basically restricted movement, basically, and it led to the cutting down of investment, and movements were basically restricted of activities that have to do with the oil and gas industry. For example, we have Nigerians that are probably based in Nigeria and are working in the North Sea. We have Nigerians that are based in Nigeria and are working in Arctic regions like Alaska. And we have some Nigerians based in Nigeria but are working in desert areas like the Middle East, all in the oil and gas industry. And it's the same way we also had expats in different parts of the world that were supposed to come to Nigeria just because of the activities. And like all of us know, when you talk about the oil and gas industry, you're talking about a global community and you're talking about a global commodity also. So based on what happened, to a reasonable extent, we saw the scaling down of investment. But we knew that even if, and as I speak, we have not actually exited the pandemic, but we knew that even if we didn't exit the pandemic just like we are now, we will get to a point where we knew that we were just going to require energy. And we will never allow the world to get grounded or grind to a halt because energy was going to be required. So, but it was a dull moment for everybody. Lessons have been learned. We are still in the pandemic, but moving forward, I mean, we see the oil industry bouncing back because energy is required and there is a need for aggregate movement and mobility of activities.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zaka. We'll get back to you, but let's head to Sokoto to join Engineer Yabo. Engineer Yabo, Abba here has talked about, some of the challenges the power sector faced and some of the policies, put in place to, address some of those challenges. But for the consumer now, there was this fluctuation of tariffs, you agree with me, there was fluctuation in terms of pricing for the consumer. What would you say, looking at 2021 now, we're just starting, for what every Nigerian wants is just an access to power and be able to afford it?
Thank you very much again, Ruth. I think the issue of tariffs are largely legal issues. Here I mean the Act, the Electric Power Sector Reform Act of 2005 established the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission and require of it as of law to ensure a balance between the customers and the investors. And so it's largely something that is beyond the realm of the policy space. Having said that, usually the way you track and determine progress in energy supply, particularly electricity, is determining the extent of infrastructure development that is happening, and of course the quality of service. So while it is at this stage very difficult to determine whether or not we are actually at a cost-reflective tariff as required by law, one could say that it's an issue of a chicken or egg. Sometimes people tend to believe that first, make sure the power supply gets to 24/7, improve high quality before you increase your tariffs. And I largely agree with that particular philosophy. And that's why, as we speak today, the current tariff regime was designed in such a way that it is a service-based tariff. Service-based tariffs means the investors, the utilities, are prohibited from increasing their tariffs without increasing the quality of service. And so to effect this particular oversight, a number of service level agreements were signed. And for most of the customers that will be seeing increase in tariffs, it's only going to be if they will have power supply of up to minimum of 20 hours to 24 hours in the category A, that's band 1, band A. For those that are going to have a slight increase would be those that will have tariffs from 16 hours to and above, to maybe 18 hours, 20 hours, and that way. So for customers that are in agrarian areas that are not likely or have not started enjoying electricity, the policy position and even the regulatory position as we speak is that they should not be having to bear any cost without such an increase. So clearly the energy industry is a highly intensive, cost-intensive industry, and I've reflected back earlier that we have seen an unusual progress. I've taken time to check why is that, and what I have found is that whereas the entire value chain, generation, transmission, and distribution have done significantly well in terms of putting in one or two things, particularly the generation side. The main drive has been the distribution companies, probably on the account of this increased service level agreement, which is highly imposed by the regulator, have started taking responsibility for ensuring that customers are getting power supplied to them, especially in those areas where they have the tariffs given out. So to a large extent, whereas at this stage it's quite difficult, I know the tariff was suspended from April to September on the account of COVID, but it will be very difficult for a country like ours with so many demands to continue to pay trillions of naira in subsidies. Having said that, we could all see that on account of technological advancements, sources of power supply like solar has continuously become cheap. And as we speak, a lot of countries are getting their supplies in the sub-tens of dollar cents per kilowatt hour, which will be much lower than the current tariffs we have. So I foresee in going forward that as we expand and we aggregate, the tariffs are likely going to be more reasonable. And it's really important for the regulators to continue to insist in the utilities ensuring that it's only those customers who are premium customers that will be impacted by this tariff at this time. Of course, the Honorable Minister has made it very, very clear that everything and anything that we must do as a sector must be reflective of the poor, as directed by His Excellency Mr. President. So to a large extent, there is quite a number of palliatives coming. For instance, the issue of the metering that is beginning out. We're doing a lot of energy efficiency campaigns, promotion of standards and levels that will allow for very small usage of electricity based on improvement in devices, as well as, of course, the recent 5 million connections through the Nigerian Economic Support Program, which the Ministry of Power is leading alongside the Rural Electrification Agency and the Niger Delta Power Holding Company. So I think by and large, it's a very important issue for everyone in the country to understand that whereas the power sector has been privatized, there is still that willingness by government to continue to support and ensure that the tariffs are within the range. But the law also requires that there has to be balance between the quality of service vis-a-vis the revenues that the distribution companies or the utility in general will be able to take. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Yabo. Definitely, you just hit the nail right in the head there. And the proposed solar home system project, which is meant to cater for people who are not, currently, connected to the national grid. Now, the target is 5 million households for 25 million individuals. How would that help to promote local production?
Okay, I think if you look at the guideline that Central Bank of Nigeria provided for the implementation of the program, you will realize that it was systematically designed to achieve the objectives of the economic sustainability program. Yeah. And that is one, stimulating economic activities, and secondly, creating job opportunities. So the guideline provided for manufacturers, in the investors or private parties that wants to establish a solar panel assembly plant within the country, have the opportunity to access a low-cost funding that will be used for the establishment of that. Beyond that also, at the same time, even those that will import but still add some value on the panels, they also have that opportunity to access funding. So to answer your question, the guideline, the way it was structured systematically to, one, make sure that Nigerians have the panels, have access to a solar home system or mini grid, but at the same time, at the back end, make sure that it creates job opportunities and stimulate economic activities. When we were analyzing the program, we have identified a number of areas where job opportunities can be created. One is even revenue collectors. The scheme has provided in such a way that you install the solar home system to individuals and the repayment will be over time. Now, within that time, there is need for that investor that installed the solar homes to employ Nigerians that will be going over a defined period of time to collect payment for that till that individual pays off the entire cost of that solar home system. So that's a line of job opportunities opportunities that has been created. There is also the line of job opportunities created for those that will do the installation or servicing of that solar panels. And for the mini grid also, you have that opportunities being created for those that will do the installation, the management of the mini grid, and also collection of the payment for the electricity that's been generated through the mini grid. So it was carefully crafted to create that job opportunities, and that is why the target is to generate 250,000 direct job opportunities out of the scheme, and that is what we are now presently tracking.
Already creating power generation.
Exactly. So creating the power generation and at the same time creating job opportunities.
Who are the main beneficiaries? You know, it could just be out there, but who are the targeted beneficiaries? Is it those in the rural communities or in the peri-urban?
Yes. So the target beneficiaries are the individuals, Nigerians that are not completely served or underserved. So it's categorically categorized them. When Engineer Farouk Yabo was analyzing the tariff, he mentioned those that will not bear increase in tariff. So those are those that fall under the category of underserved. So those can benefit from that, and those that are not completely connected with the grid will also benefit from the scheme.
Okay, we're heading to Lagos right now to join Bala Zaka. And Bala Zaka, taking a cue from the power sector, we've heard of policies, you know, that were put in place in the year 2020 to ensure that the sector thrive. But looking at the oil and gas sector, we saw a sharp drop in crude oil because of the pandemic. Now, not just Nigeria was affected, the world was affected. What would you say in terms of policies, you know, that were put in place to ensure that irrespective of the odds, it thrives?
Well, you know, when you talk about policies, we know what is happening to the petroleum industry bill. I mean, I wouldn't want to say much about that. It's been lying there for probably 10 years now. And based on that, you don't expect anybody to see Nigeria as an investment destination if we want to be real to ourselves or want to be realistic. Because if you were a director and you were sent from overseas to come to Nigeria and you've been waiting for the past 10 years so that we are going to put our regulatory standards, fix so many things within the oil and gas industry so for you to invest. If after 10 years you keep telling your directors that you are waiting for the Nigerian regulatory standards to be fixed, between you and I, you're going to be fired. I mean, it's as straightforward as that. But let us also look at the oil and gas industry generally. I mean, Nigeria is really, really rich, you know, because when you look at it, I mean, we have probably like 7 potential basins, you know. The first one is the prolific Niger Delta Basin that we know is doing very, very well. We have also discovered crude oil or hydrocarbon in the Dahomey Basin. And when we talk about Dahomey Basin, we are referring to Lagos axis. You know, we have discovered hydrocarbon in the Anambra Basin. I mean, recently also we discovered hydrocarbon in the Benue Trough into Dongola Basin. You know, then we also have additional basins that we are looking up to that are very, very potential, like the Sokoto Basin, the Bidda Basin, and the Lake Chad Basin. So in terms of hydrocarbon endowments, whether you talk about crude oil or gas, I mean, we don't have shortage of that. I think one of the major things that we need to do, like you rightly said, in the context of Nigeria, is to make sure the policies are right so that we can attract the right investors. Once the policies are right, we are going to get so many things in order. Another thing, again, we need to look at is even the volume of endowment. You know, I mean, when you were talking about also like gas, you know, in your prologue, we have more than 200 trillion cubic feet of proved gas reserve, and we have a potential of 600 trillion cubic feet. And when you say proved gas reserve, all you are saying is based on the existing technology that we have, we can scoop almost 200 trillion cubic feet of gas. From just that gas alone, I mean, we can treat the gas and make sure we drive gas turbines to generate electricity. We can also use the same gas. I mean, from that same gas, we can get ammonia. From ammonia, we can get urea. And urea is a component of fertilizer. And we can use that to boost agriculture. From the same endowment on the crude oil side, I mean, we belong to OPEC, or Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries. We can always get help from that OPEC cartel, you know, like the Saudi Arabia, the Malaysia, and the rest. Even in terms of the gas endowment, if we need support, we can always get support because Nigeria is a member of gas exporting countries. So if we can internally domesticate, especially now that we have this COVID or pandemic ravaging everywhere, if we can look inwards and domesticate, we will save ourselves from exchange rate differentials. And what I mean by that simply is, within Nigeria, let us get the crude oil from Nigeria in Naira. Move them to the respective refineries that we should fix and have in Naira. Refine them in Naira, distribute to Nigerians in Naira, free ourselves from exchange rate differentials. And even when it comes to the hauling of crude oil, another transportation means that we should look into now is called pipeline transportation. We don't need to allow heavy trucks coming to Apapa or leaving the northern axis of Nigeria and coming to the south, destroying our roads and causing carnage. We can pipe these refined products and distribute them to different parts.
Okay, we seem to be having poor signal there with Bala Zaka via Zoom. We joined him in Lagos, but we'd like to thank him. He's a public affairs analyst and petroleum engineer. But if we can connect back to him, okay, all right, I'm told he's back. So engineer, Bala Zaka, I'm calling you an engineer. Well, go ahead. You were saying something. Can you add for us your 2021 projection for the oil and gas sector, briefly?
Well, my 2021 projection is that Nigeria and the global community requires energy, and the oil and gas industry is still the mainstay of energy. If coal is still being used by developed nations, you know, and developed economies, then crude oil
All right, the network is not really friendly there. Thank you very much once again, Bala Zaka. All right, and let's head to Sokoto. Engineer Farouk Yabo is still there. We're in 2021, obviously. You've talked about, Abba here has talked about policies. You have talked about ways of addressing some of the challenges, the tariffs and all of that. Distribution, you know, access is all what Nigerians are craving for. And as the power sector re-strategize, you know, to make 2021 a better year for consumers, what would you tell Nigerians at this time?
Thank you very much again, Ruth. I think I would like to reflect back on what Abba said earlier. As we speak, looking ahead, the sector via the ministry has 5 key focus areas, which I believe, if judiciously pursued, should be able to lead us to better prospects. Number 1 is the issue of addressing the liquidity problems of the sector. It is very important for the sector to exit out of the current subsidy regime. And happily enough, based on policies under the Power Sector Recovery Program, the World Bank and other donor agencies are working with the sector to actually create an exit route through providing loans that will allow for capping out of the subsidies in terms of the shortfall in the electricity market, that will still allow for the payment of the generation cost transmission costs and distribution costs, including metering and so on, without having to continuously maintain the status quo. I believe this is being pursued vigorously by all stakeholders involved. So, secondly, the issue of alignment of the value chain. Abba did mention the fact that as we speak, we have about 13,000 megawatts of installed capacity, whereas our generation transmission stands around 8,000. Meanwhile, the total delivered peak power remains at 5,500. So the Siemens program, which is mainly coming to align the value chain, I think should be one of those things that we need to see value in. The target is by the end of 2021 to have 7,000 megawatts, and by the end of 2023, 11,000, and so on to 2025, where we have 25 megawatts. I think this is being complemented strongly by the current TCN Transmission Rehabilitation and Expansion Program, which is also heavily supported by the donors. I think we currently have about $1.6 billion available for this particular work. The third one was the issue of the legacy projects like Mandela, project like Zungeru, project like Kashimbila, Dadinkowa. Happily enough, 2020 has seen us completing and energizing Kashimbila and Dadinkowa projects. It has taken us to almost over 80% of completion in Zungeru, 700 megawatts. Of course, we are mostly aware of the significant progress that we've made in Mandela hydropower project, where in the last 6-7 months that we took over as a presidential committee, we have been able to do quite a number of things. As we speak, surveyors are on site, enumerators are on site, trying for the first time to ensure that Mandela actually has a project site. So I think these are very significant development in 2020, which we intend to build on in 2021. Of course, Abba also mentioned about the access to power upgrade. Like I've said, one of the exciting things that I can reflect back in 2020 to be very proud is the fact that we have been able to, for the first time, establish a central data management system for the country, where for the first time we have mapped the entire 11 and 33 kV PDAS across the country in 22 states. So what that means is we have been able to map up to 55,000 kilometers of low voltage lines, which means in 22 states today, we're able to sit down on our computers and see exactly which village has been connected and which village is far away from the grid. And so it helps least cost electrification planning, which are all fundamental issues that if the power sector should move forward, we should have to digitalize it. We should have to create a very transparent process of seeing what kind of progress we are making as against a situation where people will sit down and say we have so megawatts, or we have so grid extension, without having to allow the public to be able to interrogate those numbers. Again, Abba talked about coordination. I think this is the most important single thing that the sector needs today. There must be individuals who take full responsibility in terms of giving direction. The power sector cannot be driven through various ad hoc interventions, and this is something that I think the sector has suffered from 2010. Even when the Presidential Power Initiative, Presidential Power Committee was in place, where the real ownership and responsibility were not there. It got to a level where if there is a system collapse, you don't know who to hold responsible. But I think today, with the support of the leadership of the country and indeed the ministry, we are beginning to see some level of discipline and direction. Of course, the regulatory agency has been doing quite a great job. Support is coming from from all over, the Federal Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank of Nigeria. But I think all of this support should be well coordinated if we are going to make progress. This could be the
Engineer Yabo, let me hold your thoughts there. Engineer Yabo, can you hear me? Let me hold your thoughts there. Talking about progress, and you have mentioned a lot of projects, that has been put in place. About 30 to 40 were commissioned, last year, and all of that. Very briefly, you have to be brief this time around. 2021, it's one thing to have this project being commissioned, or being installed. It's one thing to have, it's another thing to have them being protected. I'm talking about vandalism. What is the, projection to curtail that, to curb it rather, the issue of vandalism of some of these projects? Engineer Yabo.
Main issue is stakeholder engagement. I think like I've said earlier, we were a bit surprised that despite the COVID and of course despite the security challenges, we have not seen a major impact that is coming negatively on infrastructure. What we have seen is inability to probably import things, so looking at just local supplies.
Okay.
But the key issue for the sector in terms of maintaining infrastructure should be a continuous stakeholder engagement with both the sub-national government, the local government, and indeed the community and the customers at large.
All right. Thank you very much, Engineer Farouk Yusuf Yabo. Thank you very much for your contribution. He's the Acting Director, Renewable Energy and Rural Power Access, Chairman, Mandela Project Delivery Committee from the Ministry of Power. Thank you. Once again, we joined him via Zoom in Sokoto. Okay, and we also like to thank Bala Zaka once again in Lagos. We lost you talking about the connection. Well, thank you very much for your contribution. We look forward to a better year, even if crude oil prices are down for the year 2021. Thank you very much for your contribution.
Thank you, and Happy New Year once more.
Happy New Year to you too. So Abba Aliyu, I'm left with you now. So what are your final thoughts? We've looked at so many things, that has played out for 2020, and we want 2021 to be better. I want to sleep and wake up and know that there's power all the time. So what are your projections?
Yeah, I think Engineer Farouk Yabo has said it all. The power sector currently is undergoing a lot of initiative and policies. What is important is in 2021 is for us to see the implementation of these policies. The Presidential Power Initiative, the federal government has established the FGN Power Co. That is an SPV with the responsibility for the implementation of the Presidential Power Initiative. And that is a great achievement. And we are very optimistic this 2021 we will see a lot of implementation of the projects under the Presidential Power Initiatives. They had already determined phase 1, 2, and 3, and even on that phase 1 they have determined quick wins. That is project that can easily be done, and a lot of Nigeria to start to see the impact of it. So it's beyond talking, it's for Nigeria to start to see the result, and I'm optimistic in 2021 we'll start to see the impact of that. Then the implementation of the 5 million solar homes is something that I'm also very optimistic that in 2021 we'll start to see it. In fact, this particular month, January, a number of deployments will commence, because currently one manufacturer, 8 companies for the solar home system and 6 for the mini grid had already been pre-qualified, and they would access this funding, and the implementation will start very soon. And there will also be engagement with a state rural electrification board for the implementation of that. So we mentioned that. Then another thing also that will happen this year is the metering. We expect that in this particular year there will be a lot of metering activities that will happen. We already 1 million meters have been provided. The Mr. President has provided a marching order for the massive rollout of metering under the national metering plan.
Which is one major challenge, metering.
Exactly. Yeah. And that is why I think the presidential directive for the sector to make sure that that metering gap it's been breached, and that is why Central Bank of Nigeria provided funding for the metering. Already 1 million meters have been distributed, and the next batch under phase 1 will also commence this particular month. So that's another activity that we will see within this particular year.
And from what you're saying, there's a whole lot that is going to play out in the year 2021. But the issue of public-private partnership in terms of investment opportunities, what is the sector doing about that?
So I think if you see the main purpose of reforming the electricity sector is to drive investment, and that was why the federal government removed itself from the management of the sector. And the essence of that is to say that, okay, you as an investor come and put in your money for you to participate in the sector. So in the generation arm of the sector, we will see a lot of investors. The Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company that has the mandate of negotiating power purchase agreement with investors has a portfolio of line investors that are ready to invest in the generation. And the regulator has been very innovative also in coming up with a regulation that will also stimulate investment in the distribution, which is a key area of that. Beyond that, also the regulator has come up with the MAP, Meter Asset Provider Regulation, that also provided an investment opportunities for private sector in the metering arm of the sector. We have also the franchise model, also where private sector also will help in getting a franchise area within a distribution area to also invest and help in collection of the money and also making some margin out of it. So the main aim of all this intervention is to continue to stimulate this investment within the sector, and which in turn creates a lot of job opportunities.
Okay, and I needed to answer this question very briefly. If my director said 20 seconds, if you please, what is your message to Nigerians for them to have that confidence once again, when we're looking at power generation for everyone?
I think Nigerians should be very hopeful. I think I'm aware that we are all frustrated with the power sector, but just to understand that addressing the power challenge is something that takes time. Projects takes a longer period of time before we start to realize their benefits. So let's be hopeful, and I'm very optimistic by this year we'll start to see the outcome of that.
The word I picked from you is hopeful, and I want to believe Nigerians will be hopeful. Abba Aliyu, SA to the Minister of Power on Policy. Thank you very much. You're doing a good job.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, then that has been the program today, talking about 2020 in retrospect. COVID-19, no doubt, has affected a lot of sectors in the year 2020. And as we begin this year, let us be hopeful, borrowing the word from Abba here. Thank you very much for your time. I'm Ruth Aguele, but don't forget to stay tuned to the NTA, because at the top of the hour, talking about 7 p.m., we'll be having a repeat broadcast of the President's New Year message. So you stay tuned, and Happy New Year once again.
Federal Republic of Nigeria.